What is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Matt Hoffman. And yes, I almost said Hoff316 because I'm back in that YouTube mode. But on the Hoffcast, you get Matt Hoffman. You don't get Hoff316. If you want Hoff316, you should go over to YouTube, search up Hoff316, and hit that subscribe button for weekly content. And if you guys are listening on YouTube to the Hoffcast, make sure you do hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed, and turn on post notifications. And then a welcome to anybody else who is listening on any other platforms such as Pocket Cast, Breaker, Radio Public, Google Podcasts, Anchor.fm, and Spotify. Welcome to the Hoffcast. It's been 5 months since I've made one of these podcasts, and I'm really excited to get back into it. But another note before I start getting into some of the content, our social media accounts have changed up a little bit. I used to have accounts dedicated strictly to the podcast. However, all of my content for social media is being housed on my main channels. So if it's on Twitter, look up Hoff316. On Instagram is Hoff316.on.youtube. And then also, if you guys want to check out my TikTok, it is Hoff316. You'll find some funny content there. But as I just mentioned, it has been 5 months since I've made a podcast, and wow, have things changed. I'm actually looking at one of the old note sheets that I put together for that episode, and I was basically explaining why I was getting back into stuff, which obviously that lasted for one episode. We were talking about the Fortnite World Cup and all about self-care. But in the notes about my update, I can see that it was about roughly a month after I started my new job. I'm now over 6 months into my job at Red Bull, and there's a lot to talk about with that. However, I might save that for another podcast, because for today, it's going to be more of a simple one just to get back into it. We're going to talk about some current events that are happening, talk about something related to my interests, and then as always, we are going to end with a life lesson type message at the end. And I have a really good one for today because it's really relevant due to a tragic recent event with the passing of Kobe Bryant and the lesson that a lot of people took from that, but something I was kind of pondering even before it happened. So, welcome back to the Hoffcast. I'm ready, and for this episode, I don't actually have anything written down, so we're going to do this on the fly with no notes and see how it goes. So, the first topic I do want to talk about is related to current events, because that's how we split up this podcast. We do a current event, and then something related to my interest that is also somewhat current or relevant to what's going on in mainstream media or anything like that. And then we'll end with today's motivational message, which is actually YOLO. And so we'll get into that. One thing I do want to explain before I get into any of the content is that I know some of you guys might have interest in one topic, maybe not another, but that is why I do have pictures on my YouTube video, which means if you're done hearing about a topic or you're not as interested in one topic as you would be in another one, you can scroll and find the exact timestamps where I do start talking about the next topic. However, I do recommend that you listen to the whole thing because you'll learn a lot and it's enjoyable. But if for some reason you don't, and that's how you consume content, I don't judge you. Just make sure you go scroll down and find the picture of the topic that I'll be talking about. But as I said, first topic is going to be current events. And what just happened yesterday on Sunday, it was Super Bowl Sunday. It was the battle between the San Francisco 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm not going to lie, wasn't really super interesting for me. I wasn't really amped to watch this Super Bowl as I have been in the past. Maybe because Patrick Mahomes almost made it last year, and the two teams, they're really good, but just kind of uninteresting to me, and I was kind of a toss-up between who I wanted to win either way. But nevertheless, I ended up watching the game, as most of you guys probably did as well. And I have some opinions about what happened. I watched Stephen A. talk about this on First Take, on who's to blame for the 49ers blowing their 10-point lead in the fourth quarter and ultimately losing to the Kansas City Chiefs, which, first of all, shout out to Patrick Mahomes for being the MVP, and a huge shout out to the coach of the winning team, Andy Reid. Well-deserved, great guy, great family man, great coach, and he finally got his chance to win the Super Bowl. Now, a lot of people that watched that game want to point the finger as to, okay, whose fault was it that the 49ers lost? Was it Jimmy G, which surprisingly Stephen A. didn't say, although he's been very skeptical of his abilities? Was it Kyle Shanahan, the head coach? Was it the defense for giving up that many points to Patrick Mahomes again, which is like the third straight team to give up that many points in a row to Patrick Mahomes? And I'm in agreement with Stephen A. Smith. I do think a lot of the blame does have to go directly to Kyle Shanahan, because if you guys didn't know, Kyle Shanahan was coaching the Atlanta Falcons for the Atlanta Falcons when they gave up the 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl against the Patriots and Tom Brady. And going into the Super Bowl, Kyle Shanahan did mention that he was going to use that as motivation and as a learning experience on what to do when they played Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. However, he didn't do anything that he said he was going to do, because they were up 10 points, just came off of a Patrick Mahomes interception, and instead of running the ball like they have been the entire game, and this is something that Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, mentioned it at the end of the game, where he said he's so happy that they didn't end up running the ball anymore, was he put the ball in Jimmy G's hands and was unsuccessful, let the Chiefs get back into the game, and then ultimately ended up allowing them to win. And so it begs the question, why didn't he just go to what was working with the run game, and why did he give Jimmy G, who you can talk about his abilities, but when it came to this game, when it mattered most, he had a pass wide open down the field, and he overthrew Emmanuel Sanders. He did, though, have one really, really good pass, which got called back, which was a nice little drop to George Kittle at the end of the first half that got called back because of offensive pass interference. In my opinion, it was offensive pass interference. There was a shove-off by George Kittle that allowed him to get that separation, which then made the score 10-10 at the end of the first half. But there was a great throw by Jimmy Garoppolo. But when it came down to it, he had the last drive of the game, and he couldn't do anything with it. So when it comes to blame in the Super Bowl, I would definitely go with Kyle Shanahan taking a majority of it, although, Jimmy G showed that he couldn't show up at the end of the game, and kind of throughout the game, as he was asked to pass the ball a little bit more and make some plays, he just didn't make them, which obviously, arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the league and of all time, Patrick Mahomes, when asked to do the exact same thing, stepped up and made huge plays for his team. Now, a big topic of the game was that Patrick Mahomes had the worst game of his career, and he still won the Super Bowl comfortably by, I think, 11 points. I think the final score was 31-20 after a nice little garbage time rush by Williams for the touchdown. But he had arguably one of the worst games of his career, and yet they still won the Super Bowl without question. Which, my opinion on Patrick Mahomes is that, he's extremely, extremely talented. His head seems to be in the right place, as Max Kellerman always says. He's kind of Brett Favre with a brain, which he did mention that in that game with 2 interceptions, he really wasn't thinking, because the 2 balls were, the second one was thrown behind his receiver. I think both of them were targeting Tyreek Hill. The other one was just straight telegraphed into the hands of Fred Warner for the 49ers. But overall, his career, 3 years, 2 MVPs, 1 regular season MVP, 1 Super Bowl MVP, and a knockout or 1 penalty away from making the Super Bowl his second year, which was last year, and then winning the Super Bowl in his third year. Who knows what's going to be in the future of him? But if you're asking me, is his career the start of someone who could be the greatest of all time? Yes, of course. I think he has incredible arm talent. I think that he's a good leader, great guy, and so I see a lot of good things for him to come, and obviously he led his team to victory, which a lot of people said they had a really easy path. They ended up playing some trash teams in the divisional round, as well as the NFC Championship with the Titans, where they stopped Derrick Henry. But hats off to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs for winning the Super Bowl. And yeah, that's pretty much my take on the game. And if you guys watched it, you guys saw all of that stuff unfold. And those are pretty much the storylines that I remember. There's not really anything else that I want to talk about when it's related to that game, because it's over. The Chiefs won. Again, wasn't super exciting for me to watch. I did watch all 4 quarters, but it ended. NFL season over. And now on to the second part of this podcast, which is going to be related to something that is of interest to me. Now, this is where you guys might skip ahead or do whatever it is, but this is the second part, so there's only one more part left. You guys want to know what it means to YOLO, then you can go skip to that part. But something I did recently, and you guys, if you've been following the Hoff316 channel, have seen me get back into it, is I started playing Pokemon Go again. And this has been great for me because it's allowed me to be healthier, lets me go out and walk a lot. I mean, before the Super Bowl, I went out and walked 4 hours and played the game before watching the Super Bowl. And then I went, while I was down by the Santa Monica Pier, went to this kind of like bar and grill place and watched the first half of the Super Bowl, then bust home to watch the second half. But it's allowed me to get out, be more active, and it's so much fun, which is weird because the last video I made about Pokemon Go was about 2.5 years ago, and the title of the video was Pokemon Go is Dead. Now, I rewatched that video just to kind of refresh myself of why I thought that the game was dead so I could speak to it now. And for me, there was really 3 main reasons why I thought that the game was dead. Number 1, there was just no new content. I had originally stopped playing when the wave of people who were really into it at first stopped playing as well. But then I got back into it because they released Generation 2, and I had so much fun with it for about 2 months. Then they just stalled updates. The game was the exact same. There was nothing new added, which was reason number 1. Reason number 2 was that cheating had been at an all-time high. People were spoofing their locations. That's one of the ways to cheat. They were using trackers, and there were more people probably cheating playing the game than there were actually organically playing the game, which was a big turnoff for me, and I just didn't enjoy it because those people were flourishing while the people who were playing in person were outnumbered drastically, which contributed to the last part of why I thought it was dead, which was the toxic community that was built. Now, I will say this. I still think that exists. I still think some of the big content creators are a little bit toxic. However, after I stopped playing, there was an enormous release of those spoofer YouTubers that were causing a lot of issues with the people who actually played the game and vlogged the content, such as Mystic7, Trainer Tips, Pokemon Master Holly, and my mortal enemy, Reversal, which they kind of poked the bear a lot, which made these content creators, act out of character and show their dark side. And because of that, the community went around that negativity, and that's what the community was built upon, was negativity. Now, I've only been back for a couple weeks, and I still follow a few of them on social media, and I watch some of their YouTube videos. But it seems to me like that side of Pokemon Go has settled down. Obviously, that toxic community has probably gone somewhere else, which is the big lesson I learned is no matter what in this world is created for entertainment, there's always going to be people who are toxic. It just, the magnitude of toxicity depends on the people involved. And so for me, just kind of on the outside, because I'm not really back into it as much as I was prior, I do see less negativity, less toxicity. However, now what I've seen way more often is just, the word isn't consistency. What's the word? Just like similarity between all the content creators. You could go from any of the big people who still make YouTube videos on Pokemon Go, and it's the same stuff. What's the update for today? What shiny am I going to catch? How to defeat a gym leader or whatever it is. It's pretty much all the same content, and they all make the same videos. So then you just have to pick which one you like most that talks about it and go from there. And that's why they don't have a lot of growth, and they haven't had a lot of growth on YouTube for the past couple years, is because they all make the same content. It just depends who you want to hear it from. I personally like Mystic7 and Trainer Tips a lot more than I like Pokemon Master Holly or Reversal. But for at least Pokemon Master Holly, I understand her audience because she's really into Pokemon just in general, as Trainer Tips is as well, but he does string more for the Pokemon Go content. So I understand that, but for me, I'm good with the people that I watch. And so I've got back into the game. It's been great. I was able to make a vlog recently, and I enjoyed making it so much. And just like I said, I played 4 hours before the Super Bowl. I've consistently every day been playing for about 2 or 3 hours. I'll take the bus down to the Santa Monica Pier. I'll walk around, complete challenges, look for shiny Pokemon. And to speak on the 3 things that I didn't like about the game and why I thought it was dead, I think they resolved the first part immensely. You come back into the game, there's all these new shiny Pokemon. Once a month, they have a community day dedicated to one specific Pokemon that they keep shiny and spawning way more often than others. So at least once a month you have something new. Then they're rolling out these new battling systems, and Now they have the entire first, second, third, fourth, and fifth generation. Back when I quit, I'm pretty sure they only had the second generation. So it was the first and second generation, which is back in 2017, September, I want to say. So 3 years from now, or 2.5 years from then, they now have 5 generations. And so there's a lot more that you can catch. There's a lot more new things added to the game. And even recently, before the Super Bowl, the reason I played for 4 hours is because there was a specific event for this rat type Pokemon, because in the Chinese New Year, it's the year of the rat. And so they had this specific rat that you can get. And by completing challenges, you had the chance of getting shinies. I ended up getting 5 shinies, I think. My shiny luck is insane. If you guys want to see my shiny luck, you can go check out my video on my YouTube that I did, which I caught the mythical Celebi. But I do talk about kind of the luck I've had and who I met the past couple weeks playing the game. But that's another aspect, along with the once a month community day. They've had so many other events. I mean, just from being back, they just had this lunar event coming up. I think they have some other events planned as well. And so that state of the game is great. When it comes to spoofing, all of the spoofing Pokemon Go content creators are off of YouTube. So we're talking FSUATL, we're talking Jono Plays. Jono Plays is still on the platform. However, I think he switched to a new Pokemon game. So I don't know if they made spoofing harder or what the dynamic of that is, but they're kind of gone. And of course, there are people who still spoof, but it's not as glorified as going out and playing the game, because the people who still play the game, and I've seen this just from being out and talking to people, are still alive and well. They're loving it more than ever. And it's great to meet those people, because they're the ones who stuck with it from the beginning. They're the ones who are dedicated. They're the ones who are actually fun to walk around and play the game with. And so that's been great for Pokemon Go. And then, as I said, the third piece of it being the content creators. I haven't seen much toxicity. I'm pretty sure Reversal still has to be blocked. I made a video on him exposing him, but I took it down because I'm not like that anymore. But essentially with him, short story of the beef, he was going to help smaller creators get some exposure. He created this entire contest for it. I submitted for the contest. He then ended up using people for money to review their channels. A bunch of people like Elijah Watts, who is now homeless apparently and doesn't make Pokemon Go content anymore, although at the time he was seen as like the next big thing in Pokemon Go. And then he actually played an enormous role in the making of Pokemon Master Holly, who I just saw in Vegas. The weirdest thing, walking to a hotel and I see Pokemon Master Holly, and I approached her and I said, "Hey, do you remember me?" And she's like, "Oh, no, I don't know who you are." I said, "Hoff316, ring a bell." She had no idea. So she's forgotten about it again. It's been like 2.5 years ago, but she played a huge role in the whole beef between me and Reversal. But he invited her to his place in Amsterdam and basically gave her all these views. And I mean, she's a good content creator, but he basically singled her out and helped her rise to fame, while the rest of us who wanted this help, wanted him to at least review our channels to see what they thought about it, had no assistance. So now how this relates to something that's been going on in same world video games. That's a mobile game. Pokemon Go is a mobile game, if you guys didn't know. With Fortnite, and I've seen this way more often just with on social media, all the content creators posting their videos and the titles of their streams and things like that. But it's now infected 100 Thieves. I saw Curse JD tweet this out, and he said that his next stream was going to be him and Cypher PK being judges on the Fortnite fashion show. So right now, Fortnite, not Pokemon Go, I'm saying Pokemon Go because they relate to each other. What's been going on is that Fortnite and Epic Games has kind of fallen into the same thing that Niantic did when they first rolled the game out. And that's, they have lived off of the hype of the game, all their streamers playing it, everyone, tweeting about it, talking about it, playing it. And now when it gets to a point where you have some big creators like Dr. Lupas playing Tarkov and Cloaksy and all these other people are playing other games, and you're seeing the popular creators start to revert to games they used to play in the past, and they're just not as interested in Fortnite anymore. Their response to that is not to amp up the updates, make some big change to the game, because they know that they still have a big audience who still plays the game. They have a competitive community that is doing very well and is going to continue to play the game no matter what. But if you learned anything from Niantic and what happened with Pokemon Go, it's that the longer that you do this, the bigger the setback is when people finally turn on your game completely. And getting people to come back to your game is going to take a lot more effort than just changing the map or changing the season. Because this season, with Season 2, or Season 1, Fortnite 2, has been going on for so long. I don't know how many months it's been going on. I don't know what they're stopping the updates for, but this game is going on that route of not making updates, living off the people who are playing competitively. And a lot of the big creators, I even just saw a video about Tfue, and Tfue talks about the game being boring like every other week. But, he's just talking about how they need to kick out this new season, or they're going to start losing some even bigger names. Because, again, Dr. Lupo, Ninja still plays the game. Nate Hill still plays the game. Those types of guys still play the game. But a lot of other creators are looking to revert. And if they're not reverting, now they're making Fortnite fashion show content, which I tweeted and I said, me watching these people it was a funny gif, but that's what Fortnite's become. And this is what happened when customs came out originally. It was really good clickbait for the streamers on YouTube. People would just say Fortnite custom games, and it would be like streamers hosting 15 to 20 people games that were so boring, but all the little kids enjoyed it. They wanted to be able to get in the game against their favorite streamers. So they would go and they would join Discords and they would get codes, and that's how they rode the wave. And now the new wave is Fortnite fashion contests. So that's where we've gotten to with Fortnite, and that's how bored content creators have gotten. Where now fashion shows were something that were not big, but something that were created a couple months ago by a few bigger content creators. Is basically when people walk through the wooden wall, and then the creator is to choose if they pass or not, and then all gets down all the way to a final. And now what I saw it got way too far was when Cypher PK posted a clip of himself, and I believe it was Nick A30, or it was another big streamer, and they had some like choreographed emo dance spray combination, and they looked really intense with it. And so when I saw that, I cringed a little bit, and I was like, this is not going down the right path. So hopefully Fortnite learns from what happened with Pokemon Go. Again, Fortnite is scaled up by like 50,000 compared to Pokemon Go because of the Fortnite World Cup. The amount of creators and the quality of creators that are in Fortnite as opposed to Pokemon Go. And so I know they're probably far away from the destruction of the game, but they're going down a path that is not desirable. So now for the last topic of the podcast, which again, as I mentioned, the structure of these podcasts, I always leave the last part of it to be some type of motivational message, some type of life lesson you guys can take to apply to your life. And some of these lessons, you can actually do a thought exercise while I'm talking, which kind of makes you think about whatever I'm talking about and seeing how it applies to your life right now, which I feel like is the most valuable type of self-reflection and looking at what's going on, because you can hear something and then think about it, but then when someone's actively telling you to slow down your thoughts and put yourself in the present and think about what's going on, it has a little bit more of an impact on you than if you were just, again, to hear something or read something online and try to apply it to your life. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, the topic or the life lesson for today is going to be YOLO. And so that word strikes the fear in many religious people. And yes, I am very religious. I am Catholic. And whenever you say YOLO, people are always like, no, it's not YOLO, because when you die, you go to heaven and you live a second life and all this stuff. But when I say YOLO, I'm talking more in the in-world sense, as far as like you really do, objectively live one life on this earth. And this was something I was thinking about before the passing of Kobe, but because of what happened with Kobe, it's been kind of thrown, into the eyes of the public, and maybe some of you guys have thought about this as well. But, he died at the age of 41. He didn't think his life was going to end that early, and nobody knows when their day is going to come. So often in life, we can get caught in a trance, which has happened to me on multiple occasions, where you're going through life, you're listening to people tell you what to do, and more importantly, telling you what you shouldn't be doing, or you have an idea or a thought of where you want to go with your life, and you get advice from people and they just kind of shoot you down or make you feel bad about yourself. But if you take this message as you live every single day, it will take you out of that trance from time to time, because again, life does happen. You go to school, you go to work, you go to practice, and people make you do stuff, or there's going to be a consequence that you don't like. Whether it's being fired, whether it's being not getting starting time, whether it's failing or something, or getting criticism from somebody who affects either something financially, something related to your grades, or your starting position, or anything like that. But if anything, you got to think about what Kobe had done. Is that he had one of the greatest careers, in my opinion, the greatest career an NBA basketball player could have ever had. He had so many accomplishments. He was starting to become, even better in his second career as a father. But his life was cut short on something that he could not control. And in this life, there are a lot of things you can't control. There's a lot of things that happen, and you just have to react. So one thing that I found extremely useful, and I'm going to use a funny example before I get into the real example. A funny example of it, I think it's mindfulness. I think it's just being in the moment. Is I find it often whenever I go out to eat. Sometimes I can stop before I eat and think and say, why do I actually enjoy this? Like, I'm putting food in my mouth, but like, where does this feeling come from? And it actually takes the desire to eat away, because then I just feel like I'm stuffing my face with stuff that might taste good, but then I wonder, why does it taste good? Taste buds, what are they? And I put myself, and it's like, wow, that's like a weird feeling for me. You can do the exact same thing with the whole YOLO mantra. And so when I talk about reflecting on what's going on right now and looking at what you're doing, I want you to do this thought exercise where, stop right now as you're listening to this and think about your life. I know I have a lot of younger audience, so this might be school related. Again, it might be sports related. You're a part of a team. It's basketball season right now, swimming season, wrestling season, or you're somebody who has a career. And honestly think to yourself, is this what I want to be doing, or is this what other people tell me I should be doing? Because inherently in our society, we have a lot of norms that are given to us by our family members, by people around us, where, if you're a kid, you go through high school, you get good grades, you take the SAT, which is like this all-powerful thing to tell you how smart you are, to get into college. And then once you get into college, you're supposed to study all the time, and you're supposed to work extremely hard, and you're supposed to do all of that in order to graduate with a degree, and that degree is going to get you a job in this world. And it might not be the job that you want originally, but those little jobs that you take when you graduate will eventually amass to something that you love to do, and you'll make a lot of money. And then you're expected to go out, find someone to get married to, have a family, live a life, and die of old age. Now, a lot of people you might get advice to or advice from will give you kind of the blanket statements as far as when you have some type of conflicting thought in your mind or conflicting decision that you have to make. They'll just give you the world expected response to it. Well, they'll tell you, just stick through it. A lot of the times this is a good example whenever you feel uncomfortable about a certain thing because you're new to a job or you're new to a situation. They're always like, it's just like being the freshman, man. You got to get beaten up. So then when you become the senior, you can beat up on kids or whatever. But I always say to that, why not become a senior and change the way that things are to the freshmen coming up to you because of what you had to go through? There really are two types of people in this world. There are the people who were that freshman, got treated horribly, and so they become the senior who takes advantage of the freshman, and the life cycle continues. But then there are the people who want to make a difference in the world, who want to make it different for the people that will come after them, and they take what they went through and they use it as motivation to change the way things are moving forward. And that's what an influencer is. The word influencer gets thrown around in popular media nowadays because influencers are people with a lot of followers, a lot of clout, a lot of money, a lot of fame. And to the word influence, they really do influence the way that people think, the way that people act. And people act and say stupid stuff as a result of these influencers. However, there is a different type of influencer, somebody who does either have gone through a situation that you might have gone through, that is going through something tough, that they can relate to you. Those are the people who become influencers, who become positive influences as well in your life, who can help you, tackle life, because life inherently is extremely stressful. It's extremely hard, but the goal of influence is to make a better life for the people to come after you. And that's why so many charitable foundations are set up, whether it's from something that someone went through as a child or something that is a passion point for someone because it's something that they witnessed when they grew up. People who have a lot of money end up making these foundations to help these kids have a better future and to educate them on a different path of life that you can take that stray away from the ones that will get you in trouble, that will make you depressed, unhappy, and ultimately unsuccessful, whether it's unsuccessful in a monetary way where you're not making, enough money to support yourself, or just unhappy or unsuccessful when you get all of this stuff and you're still empty. And so for me, just to end this podcast and end that point, I challenge you guys to attack every day. And when stuff gets hard, think YOLO. And what you'll realize, and what I've realized recently, is that when you think about it in that way, the people that are giving you advice and the advice that you're getting and the way you're going about things, the world and the situation feels, it feels less heavy. So there's not as much on your shoulders. So last example, I'll use this and then we'll be done with the podcast. Don't worry. This happened when I wanted to quit football. So when I was a sophomore in college, if you guys had listened to my podcast recently, I think my first ever episode, which is the episode that I explained everything about my life. So if you guys want to learn more about my life, go check out that first episode after this one. The example I use is when I quit football, I went back and forth with it. And when I did it, it felt like the biggest decision of my life. It was going to affect the job that I got. It was going to affect my school standing. It was going to affect my social situation because I had all these friends from football, but not really many outside. And there were so many areas of life where I was just like, if I make this decision, man, this is the hardest decision of my life. I'm not going to be the same person moving forward. Now looking back at it, think about how many people quit that team and think about where my life is now. I look back at this situation. I'm like, wow, why did I even care that much? It was plain and simple of why I should have quit. I did it, and it was fine. My thing about YOLO, though, and this is one condition, because a lot of people take this advice and they just go do whatever they want to do, and then they come back and say, well, you told me you only have one life and you got to do what you love to do no matter what. The one piece that you also have to add with it is you have to be strategic with your plan. Being in LA, one of the biggest or most common things that people do is they just get up and move out here, live on someone's couch, try to make it in the music world, in the film world, whatever their passion is. And that's what they say is YOLOing. I think that there's a common ground where you can take the ideals of YOLO and, what you want to do in life and going after your dreams and your goals, but also using what you already have built, whether it's a support system with your family, education, sports, whatever it may be, to strategically use those to your advantage so that you can go about your dreams and goals more realistically and not just up and be like, I'm just going to go do this because I only live one life and so I'm going to throw it away for the chance of doing something. The more of a foundation you create for you to go and pursue those dreams, the better. So that's my 2 cents, man. And first podcast episode back, I think it went well. I think I talked about a lot of different stuff. And I'm going to try to crank these out whenever I have stuff to talk about. That I think the reason I wanted to make this was specifically for that last point. And I always like talking about the life lessons a lot more because, yeah, we can talk about the Super Bowl. Yeah, we can talk about Fortnite and Pokemon Go and how much fun it is. But, I feel like the life lessons are more valuable for you guys to listen to. And hopefully you guys feel the same way. So we'll be cranking these out whenever I have a chance to talk about stuff, whenever I can throw this together. I think this one will be a little bit over half an hour. The first couple ones I made were about an hour long. So I'm glad to cut these down in half, make it a little more easy to consume this type of information. But this is really where my forte is. I had no notes for this episode, just everything coming from my heart, everything coming from my mind. And I think that speaking, especially motivationally, is something that I really enjoy doing and comes easy to me. So hopefully you guys feel the same. If you guys did, make sure to leave a like on this video if you're on YouTube. If you guys are on any of the other platforms, as I said, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Radio Public, Google Podcasts, Anchor.fm, or Spotify, Make sure you go over to YouTube, type in the Hoffcast, look at my channel. It'll be the one with about 20 subscribers. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell, which is post notifications, so you guys will know exactly when these are posted. And I thank you all for watching. And until next podcast, I will see you guys later.